Hey everybody, it's Mike Cadju from Procurement Foundry. I'm really excited to have you all here today. We're recording this event. We're going to be putting it into the Procurement Foundry as well. Just waiting for some people to start jumping in here, and we're going to kick off. Trying to see where the numbers of people are that are attending.
Bottom left.
Bottom left. Bottom left. Oh, wow, we've got 30 people already in here. Fantastic. So we're a couple minutes late to get started. The way this is going to work today, I'm going to do some introductions to our panel that you probably already know all of these folks. They're very widely known in the industry. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in 2020 focus, what you need to know about 2020, and then we're going to talk about what's possible in 2020 as well. So again, this is part of the Procurement Foundry original content series. We're going to start doing more and more events like this with panel discussions. We are looking into live streaming right now. We're almost there, so stay patient with us. But thank you very much for all of you that are joining. Wow, we're up to 40, 36, 37 people, so thank you. We've got about 100 people that have signed up for this event. I'm sure they'll be filtering in as it goes. So let's get started. I've got two Canadians and a West Coaster with me today, so I'm really excited about this. I'm going to start with Sarah Humphrey. Sarah, is it Sarah Barnes Humphrey or Sarah Humphrey? How do you prefer Sarah?
It's Sarah Barnes Humphrey, yeah.
Sarah Barnes Humphrey. So Sarah Barnes Humphrey hosts a podcast online and has been doing it for a long time called Let's Talk Supply Chain. She's one of the top 100 influential women in supply chain. Below her is Mark Raffin, who also hosts a podcast, Negotiations Ninja. It's in the top 50 podcasts in the management category in Apple right now, and one of the top 300 in business overall. I'm sure you've listened to his stuff before. Wow, he's getting applause from Sarah. That's impressive. And the person who probably needs the least introduction here is Dr. Eloise Epstein, and I don't know where she's situated on the screen. She's below me. Dr. Eloise is a vice president of all things procurement at A.T. Kearney. She is the de facto standard in futurist vision in procurement. She's the co-author of Future of Procurement, which is a 10-post article series from last year that I've read and is kind of now my Bible and where I go to look for the future. She is also a steering committee member for the Procurement Foundry, so thank you very much for your commitment to that. She's been helping us build out the Procurement Foundry and everything that it is today, so your commitment on that has been unparalleled. Thank you so much. I'm going to go around, let everybody talk a little bit about themselves, then we're going to jump into some topics. So Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I've been on the 3PL side for over 2 decades. I used to say 20 years, but somebody told me that 2 decades doesn't sound as long. And basically did everything from operations to sales to ended off the career there as director of sales and marketing, and then jumped right into supply chain media and supply chain management, obviously with the podcast, with the YouTube channel called the SC Supply Chain TV. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. For those people who have been in indirect procurement their whole lives, 3PL?
So I worked for a forwarder that basically, a freight forwarder that has warehousing and customs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we should talk about my past life in the seafood industry and the stuff that died on the tarmac, but that's a whole nother session. Mark Raffin, let's talk about you. A little bit of your background, please, and where are you coming from?
Representing Canada today, first and foremost. I got my black and red on. Very happy about that. Sarah's not wearing the uniform.
Memo. Nobody sent me the memo.
Okay, I represent it proudly. It's fine if you don't. It's okay.
All right.
Okay.
We're just going to jump off and let you two talk for the rest of the 60 minutes.
Yeah, for the listeners, Negotiations Ninja podcast, as Mike mentioned, we're just kicking ass right now in terms of what we're doing online. Very happy about that. Very proud of my team. I couldn't do it without a killer team. Also own another company called Content Callout, which is a social media marketing and writing company that builds thought leadership brands online.
I think it's fantastic that I didn't call out your company. That's actual name is Callout. Anyway, so Dr. Eloise, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Love to hear.
Yeah, so I've been in consulting almost 2 decades, 19 and a half years, which in consulting makes me an old timer. So, and I do all things digital for supply chain and procurement. And my area of focus is looking towards the future. If you want to go implement SAP or, or Ariba, God help you, that's not the consulting I do. I really look at how companies can transform and change with this explosion of new technology. And so I work across industries and I do a lot of public speaking, as you might imagine. And I'm just thrilled to be here. I love the procurement foundry. The energy's great. So I'm excited for today.
Great. Absolutely wonderful. Just quick, one more thing. Anybody speaking at any upcoming events that people need to know about?
Yeah. I'm going to be speaking at Spark coming up here in February. That's the Scout RFP user conference. It is, I don't feel like I'm biased here, but I believe it's the #1 procurement event of the year. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. It certainly looks like there's a lot of attention on that, at least in the tool section, in the procure to pay section. So it looks like there's going to be a huge turnout there. What, a couple thousand people, right?
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, great. Stan, there's a free plug. It's free. You don't need to call us. Dr. Epstein, I know you're speaking somewhere probably tomorrow. So what's your agenda?
I just did something on Monday. I'm actually speaking at Spark, so I'll be there. It's a pretty awesome conference. And then I'm speaking at ISM, the national conference in April, and I'm also speaking, for those of you in New Jersey, I'm speaking at the New Jersey chapter in March, and with a whole series of things that follow up after that. And just in case you're really wondering, I'm also booked for Digital Procurement World in September, so that's pretty hot.
Digital Procurement World out in Europe?
Yeah, in Amsterdam.
Yeah, so, yeah. That might be worth the trip, Mark. We should grab a couple tickets and go to Amsterdam.
Hey, if you're paying, I'm in.
Sarah, you out and talking anywhere soon?
Yeah, I'm going to be moderating a panel at the Supply Chain Canada Sustainability Leadership Conference in February. And then I'm also going to be moderating a few panels at TPM, which is in Long Beach in March. And I'm also going to be live streaming from there too. So that's
awesome. Nice.
Awesome. And away we go on live streaming. All right, let's jump in. It's been 10 minutes. I haven't chewed on a topic yet. So I'm really excited to do this now that we got all the formalities out of the way. And I feel very Canadian in how we've done that. So I'm glad that we're so happy. So like I said, we started actually pre-gaming this event, talking about what we thought the trends were going to be in 2020 that you all need to know as an audience to kind of keep grounded and keep pace with the rest of the folks, or even maybe potentially ahead of the pace. As we started to talk, we realized that there's so many folks that are actually behind that what we probably need to do is we need to talk about what you actually need to do just to keep up with 2020. We'll talk a little bit about forward-looking trends and things like that at the end, but we thought it was really important for you to hear from us about what you are probably required to do at a minimum base to stay afloat this year. So we're going to talk about that. I want to dive in. I want to approach this from 3 different angles. I want to first talk about, from an organizational perspective, what we think from a tech and a data perspective, because everybody's struggling with tech and data. And then I want to talk about personal growth, because this is the Procurement Foundry, and this is about practitioners, not necessarily about the companies that they work for, but growing out our practitioners. And then anything that comes from that helps their companies. So Sarah, let's talk. I'll go to you first, Sarah. From an organizational perspective and with the lens towards supply chain management, what do you think is happening that people need to do from an organizational perspective to stay afloat, be it structuring or hiring or where supply chain management is positioning itself in the enterprise? What do you think?
Well, can I say all of it? I think we've got a lot of work to do. I think that, we need to be at there's so much technology coming at us really quickly. And we spoke about this in the precursor to this discussion. Where do we need to be by the end of 2020 for it to matter, right? There's no point in implementing technology if you're not ready for it. because then you're only using a small portion of it. You're not actually using 100%, and it's not really benefiting your business, and you're spending all this money on it. So where do we start? Where do we need to be by the end of 2020? I think, data is a huge place to begin, right? I think that data, and I know that Mark's probably going to want to weigh in, and Eloise for sure, but I think we really, really need to spend some time on data before we're looking too far ahead on technology. Yes, everybody needs technology, but if we don't have the data to figure out where we need to implement that technology, in a timely fashion that's really going to benefit the business, I don't know where else we can start.
Yeah. Definitely part of what I'm seeing from an organizational perspective is I still don't see procurement and supply chain management reaching out to their brothers across the hall in IT and saying, hey, I need 3 or 4 data analysts to help me. I need to understand technology. So from an organizational perspective, I think that there's just not enough expansion and tying into the other organizations yet horizontally. I think everybody talks about hey, I want to get a seat at the table. I want to get a seat at the table. I don't think that they have a seat with their peers yet, with the CIO's office and the others that could help them so much. Are you seeing that in supply chain management as well as we're seeing it in indirect?
Yeah, you bring up actually my second point, which is collaboration, right? I think that more and more our departments or the businesses need to figure out how our departments can work better together. I think it's only going to benefit growth of the business and, customer experience, right? It's going to increase that customer experience, which means it's going to increase the growth of the business. And if we don't know how to work together and we don't know how to figure out how to capitalize on each other's strengths, on their data points, and look at it holistically, we're just going to move forward in such a fractured manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Eloise, any thoughts on where people are at organizationally and what they need to do just to keep up with 2020?
No, I do. I will chime in on that as we look at sort of the future trends. But I think what's been said, I agree with.
Yeah. So do you think people are where they need to be organizationally, or do they need to play catch up before they even start thinking about the future?
They are nowhere near where they need to be. And and just to kind of frame, and this might give you a pivot into the tools have grown so much and so exponentially that we're kind of in the era where you can't make excuses. And the fact that you don't have good spend visibility, the fact you don't have your contracts in one place, that's not a technology failure. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could blame the technology, the lack of data. You can't blame the tech tools and the data anymore. Mm-hmm. So now, if that's the case, then we need to really start looking at the talent and org more critically. And to Sarah's point, it really is about these other elements. The digital is there, it's matured, and so
where do you believe critical. Like the talent and the org where's the gap there?
Well, I think to Mike's point about or maybe Sarah's point about moving across the aisle and collaborating, I absolutely agree with that. There are clients that I find that companies, especially the big companies, can hire data scientists, like as an example. That's not the problem. The problem is giving them good work, good career paths. And one of the areas is procurement can oftentimes tap into these resources. Oftentimes, sometimes they sit outside of IT, so it depends where they sit. But I don't think procurement necessarily needs to hire these people. And if you don't hire these, you just need to leverage the people that exist. So it's moving beyond, procurement's comfort zone. It's easy to just kind of sit and hide, for lack of a better word. And I don't mean that pejoratively, but these resources exist, and there's been over the last 5 years a huge push for people to hire these really advanced, data scientist type people. I use that more representative, and And especially the other thing that I'm seeing is now that these people that got hired by Google and Facebook 5, 7, 10 years ago, they're starting to matriculate out and into industry because they want families and they want to do something more than, live at the company. So I'm not sure if I even answered your question, but
no, I think that's a great point, and I think that probably, at least from an organizational perspective, I think that what I can take away from what you're all saying, and Mark, please chime in before I jump over you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think one of the things that I'm hearing is that there's probably resources already available somewhere else in your organization. You don't need to hire them. And in a lot of cases, at least in my history, I know that when I'm looking for a data analyst or a data scientist who might be in treasury or finance or in some other category, and they have cycles to spare, I haven't reached out and asked, hey, can I borrow your data scientist for 8 hours a week, right? Because I need them to look at this spend. And it's almost like an internal consultancy share practice amongst resources, so that you're not hiring a data resource who only is working 40% of the time because it's just procurement and spend data, but you've got somebody who's working HR, benefits, treasury, finance, supply chain management, sales. There's data scientific needs in all of those areas. And from an organizational perspective, I think probably one of the takeaways for things that you have to do to keep up in 2020 from an organizational perspective is find your other organizations horizontally, find out what resources they have and how you can leverage those to go forward. Stop talking for a minute about getting a seat at the table and find out what seats at the adjoining tables you probably need to be at as well in 2020 to help facilitate that moving to off the kitty table at Thanksgiving.
And Mike, I think
sorry, go ahead.
I think it's a lot about not necessarily, look, we know that there are gaps and we know that there are solutions to those gaps and we know that there are resources to those gaps and we know that we have to ask, but it's how we ask, I think, is the big issue, because we come as procurement people to other departments, we come across as very cold, very data-driven, very analytical, very abrupt. And so I think how we ask other departments for help is very, very important.
I'm sorry, the sun's setting here in New York City, so I have to keep focusing my light on myself more and more, or else I'm going to be in a cave by the time we end this. I completely agree with you, Mark. I think that, you have to kind of, and I tell people this all the time, when you go down to the tax department for the first time to ask about sales and use tax with supply chain and purchasing and vendor, bring donuts or scotch or whatever it is that they like. Don't be that cold procurement guy down the hall who never said hello in the lunch line at the cafeteria.
You know, it's funny though, because like people hear that and they think, that can't necessarily work, right? Like there's no way if I bring donuts for someone, they're going to be more prone to give me something. But there's like, if you read anything that any behavioral economist has done worth their salt, they talk about the power of reciprocity and how reciprocity builds further reciprocity back to you. So for example, like back in the days, the Hare Krishna Society, whenever they would want to get donations, they would give people a flower, right?
They still do that.
No one wants that flower, right? Like I don't want your flower, but once they give you that flower, now you feel obliged to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. And what they found, there's been studies done, what they found is that the probability of you giving a donation once you receive the flower is significantly higher if you didn't receive the flower. So when you bring donuts down to the tax department, you're not bringing donuts down to like just be a nice person. Studies have shown that if you bring them something, you give them something, the power of reciprocity builds and they're more likely to give you what you want. Very
interesting and a very different place where I thought this conversation was going to go. But thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that.
But can I challenge something? Not Mark, what Mark said, but this idea that procurement is stodgy and we got to go down to the tax department and do this. Like I see a ton of innovation in procurement.
Yes.
And to me, this is the greatest time to be in supply chain and procurement. There is so much innovation happening and so much excitement. And I look at if you take any enterprise, you split it in half. You have the commercial side and you have operations, right? The commercial side is, Salesforce transformed it back in the early 2000s. It just is kind of on autopilot. Unfortunately, it gets a lot of the investment dollars still. But if you look at operations, it's a great time to be in all things operations. And so when we talk about corporate responsibility and sustainability and all of those sort of hot topics that are right now, procurement is the one that can make a difference. And so I was listening to the CPO of a hotel chain talk, and when they wanted to move to paper straws, they came right to procurement, because of course procurement's going to be the person that can, the group that can affect that change. And increasingly we're seeing that. So I also would just add to maybe this picture of what procurement does, and say that it's not just going down to the tax department. It's actually, hey, we're championing the change, the corporate responsibility that we want to do for what it said enterprise.
Yeah.
And I just want to jump in there too, because it's not just about data. It's not just about sharing the data. It's also about cross function, right? Understanding what the people around you do and working together to figure out a plan, taking that, to the top to say, hey, we've spoken about this. This is what we do. This is what they do. These are some of the gaps. This is our overlaps. This is how we can work together. And we feel that this is, a really great plan moving forward. We want to do this. And then we can take a look at the technology to bring us all together. So, I think there's a couple of different points there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we could do a whole nother panel discussion diving into that. I want to continue down the path because I'm watching the time click away, and I don't want this to be a 3-hour panel discussion, even though I think it would be well worth the 3 hours for our viewers. So one of the places where we wanted to talk about things where people need to, and we're kind of hitting on all of them all at the same time, so I appreciate that. I want to focus in just for a second on tech and data. What do you think people need to have and keep up with in 2020 just for table stakes, just to keep alive in 2020? We talked a lot about the fact that it's the Excel problem out there, which is if you use more than 3% of Excel, you're a guru. Most people, I think, Microsoft admits that the average Excel user only uses like 3.5% of the functionality. I think I use about 1% of it. And then the other question is in the data side is, what do we have to know? We've already started to talk about, tracking down data scientists potentially in other areas and things like that. Do people need to start to, if they're not thinking about data, do they need to think about it and get trained on just what the heck it is? I'm shocked at how many people in procurement or supply chain management don't know what a relational database is and how it all works together and how they can clean data and what it potentially presents to them, and the fact that they're looking at Excel sheets when there's things like Tableau and Power BI and there's real actionable presentation layer things out there now that help make these decisions graphically so much better. And then also, and I'll stop in a second, I'm hearing so much buzz about, and I'm not going to say it, Doc. I promise I wouldn't say the thing that starts with an A and ends with an I. But I'm hearing so much hype about RPA, and I'm talking to people about RPA because it's part of kind of what we do in my consulting life. And people are like, I want to deploy an RPA bot. And I'm like, you don't even have a process defined yet. How am I going to teach a bot to build something you don't have a process for? So let's go around the horn and talk a little bit about where people are from a tech and data perspective and what they have to stay ahead of this year just to not get lost in the wake. Sarah, you first in supply chain, because I know supply chain's grappling with this really hard right now.
Well, you bring up a really good point. I mean, where is everybody at, right? I mean, there's all these fancy names and there's all these fancy toys that are out there from a technology standpoint, but are you using everything that you have currently to the maximum capabilities for you to be able then to move on to the next piece of technology? I don't think most people are, like you said with Excel. Like most people are using 3% of the functionality of Excel. We're trying to get away from Excel, but what does that mean for their internal systems? What does that mean for the systems that they already have? You know, I mean, like you said, you want to implement an RPA bot. Well, if you don't know what your system's capabilities are currently and what your technology partner can offer, moving down the line, once you're using that technology to the fullest potential, then you could be, you know, just wasting time talking to all these technology providers and you don't even know where you're at.
Yeah, one of the things I love to do is I love to get stakeholders who are telling me, hey, I don't like this tool, I want to go out and find another one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, before we do that, I'm going to bring in the partner vendor, whoever they are, and we're going to run through all the functionality that's inside of their product that you had me buy last year for you and see how much of this crap that's in this piece of software that you don't even know exists that solves what you're asking me to go out and buy right now, right? Yes. So I think that's probably one thing from a data and a technology perspective that people need to go. And from a procurement perspective, I think, you know, we're so, okay, we'll go buy whatever you want us to buy, that that I think we need to really go back and go, hey, let's be the fiduciary responsibility folks and ask you whether or not you're managing, you know, have you gone beyond 3%, right? Mark, your thoughts?
So I love it when people get all hot and bothered about RPA, because usually what they're thinking about is like, how do I make this task easier and more efficient? And then I ask them questions about VBA and some basic macros, and they're like, what? Yeah. I'm like, okay, like we can't have this conversation. Like you can't do RPA if you haven't even gotten someone who's good with VBA coding in here to help you with the most basic process tasks. So let's do that stuff. And if there's big enough processes for us to tackle that we can't do with the simple tool that you already have, don't buy that RPA system. Yeah,
I agree. Dr. Eloise, any thoughts on data and or technology and what people baseline have to be coming out of this year with?
I have a lot of thoughts about this. How many hours do we have?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, for all of you that don't know, this literally is what Dr. Eloise does for a living.
Yes. And yes, they yes. I think, so first of all, if you don't have a spend cube, you got to have spend visibility. It kills me. I keep, so shockingly over the last 6 months, I find more and more, I thought we were moving past this, but more and more people don't have basic spend visibility. That's like a given, and there are now tools that will accelerate that. So again, back to this no excuses, it's time to just get that done, because it doesn't have to be 100%, it just has to be directional, because what you really want is the forward-looking insights, and that's where I push everybody. And I won't talk about the future, but if you don't have that, that's number one. Number two is you got to get the contract insights, right? Again, you that's like, what are your SLAs? What's your variation in your SLAs, in your clauses? What are your rates? Are they, you know, can you tie them to what's actually been delivered and what you're paying? Because you're probably overpaying quite a bit and getting under delivered. And I think the other, and I think just fundamental is getting your MDM cleaned up, your master data management. And I'll just talk this indirect for a moment, or I'll start with indirect. There's no excuse to have poor vendor masters. Like, there are tools now that accelerate the cleansing, harmonizing, parenting, and now enriching of your vendor master. So, and they do it very quickly and very sophisticated. So it's like, how many times do we need to master, you know, supplier A? I mean, it's been mastered a gazillion times. So that is like, if you're not doing those things, absolutely. I understand if we look more broadly to the supply chain, material, and product master, that becomes a little more complicated. But certainly with vendor master, that is like fundamental price of admission.
Great answer.
I'm restraining myself.
I don't know how to follow that up, and I appreciate you wrapping that into about 3 minutes, because I know there's about 20 years. I know there's 20 years of research and knowledge behind that. So the fact that you can wrap that up into an elevator pitch in 3 minutes is amazing. All of those tools that you mentioned that are out there, if people, and we're not going to get into it, if you want to know, by all means, jump into Procurement Foundry. We've got an entire channel on tools. Start asking about tools. We can start talking about the names of the tools that do all of those things for you inside of the collaboration channel. Okay, so just a time check. We're at 30 minutes in. We're about halfway through question number 1, part 2. I'm excited about that. We're starting to get questions in from the audience, which is great. We're teetering around 40, 45 people. Some of the questions that you have are extremely complicated. One of them literally, I'm gonna try my best, but we'll get to the Q&A towards the end. I'm gonna leave plenty of time, 15 minutes at the end for this. Last thing on the have to know in 2020 for table stakes to survive. Let's talk personal growth. I mean, a lot of the folks inside of the Procurement Foundry are here because they're trying to network with peers. A shocking amount of them are trying to find jobs, which we won't get into today. But there's a lot of them that are here for personal growth, knowledge, experience, networking, educational purposes, and just lurking in the halls listening to people. I had somebody reach out to me the other day who is new to the business, been in indirect procurement now for about 3 months, and told me, I've learned more in the Procurement Foundry in 3 months than I learned in my 3 years at supply chain management school. Thank you so much. Right? And I was like, okay, great. Well, we're doing great stuff. And he's like, and I reached out, and I've got a mentor now that I found in here, and I didn't even know half of this stuff existed, so thank you so much, right? So let's talk personal growth. What do people need to be doing in 2020 around personal growth? Mark, I know you're itching. I can feel the flannel up against me. I know you're itching to talk about personal brand development. So I'm just going to let you go. We're all going to take a break. You do 5 to 6 hour dissertation, and we'll be back. All right. So go ahead. You've been dying to do it. Personal growth from Mark Raffin on personal branding. Go.
Listen, if you're not getting attention, you will never succeed long term. And this is actually really shitty news for a lot of people who are like wallflowers, who don't want a lot of attention, who kind of want to just, lurk in the hallway and do their jobs and stuff like that. Look, I get it. This sucks for introverts. It's bad news.
Bad news for Canadians.
It's great news for Canadians. You know how friendly we are?
Wonderful
people. Man, it's the best news ever. This is where Canadians shine, man.
As long as you don't wear
I'm wearing the uniform, I'm ready to go.
The British folks who would be on this simulcast with all of us haven't even spoken up yet to say, hello, my name is Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
So some of you are better at this than others, and I understand completely. So go ahead, continue.
Listen, you've got to get out there. And here's what I want you to do. If you're on LinkedIn or you're on Procurement Foundry, and you're on other platforms, Twitter, Instagram, I doubt anyone on here is on TikTok yet. But if you're on any of those platforms, my recommendation is for you to get out there, start writing. Number one, first of all, buff up your profile, right? I mean, obviously you want your profiles to look good. Get a great headshot. Make sure you've got good banners. Get someone to design your stuff. It's
Fiverr.
Yeah, go onto Fiverr, go onto Upwork, do whatever, pay $10, get some banner done properly, and then start writing. So here's the thing. Everyone on this attendee list right now is probably thinking, but I don't have anything to write about. I guarantee you've got something to write about. You just haven't thought hard enough about it yet. And then you're going to give me the excuse of, but everyone else is already doing that. And I'll be like, and what? Yeah. If that was the excuse as a barrier to entry, no one would ever do anything ever. So You've got to find something that you're going to start writing about. Put your name out there, start writing. LinkedIn has given you the ultimate platform to get your name known. Once you start writing stuff and sharing stuff and start engaging with other people's content, your profile starts to grow organically. And then more people will engage with you. And if you're seen to be a thought leader in whatever you're doing online, you will have more opportunities. Opportunities will literally come to you instead of you searching them out.
Absolutely,
And
no
that's
question.
where the power is. Everyone's so focused on like applying for jobs. Forget about that. Start being a thought leader in what you're doing, and the jobs will come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very interesting. So, Sarah, quick question for you. From a supply chain management perspective versus an indirect spend perspective, because I'm shocked at how many more supply chain management people there are than indirect people. Most organizations that I meet, it's like, these are our 10 indirect guys, and these are our 2,000 supply chain management folks, right? So there are just legions of supply chain management folks out there. Personal branding. I mean, my thought process on this whole thing is that the CV is going to go away. I think that the CV is an afterthought. I think that, hey, listen, it's a nice piece of paper to have, but I think people in companies are going to be much more interested in what is your brand? What are you talking about? Are you a thought leader? How do you position yourself, publicly? Because that gets you thinking. I mean, I can look at a piece of paper and look at LinkedIn right now and know all about your background. So how is that playing out in the supply chain management space where there's so many more supply chain management folks than there are indirect people?
So the one thing I'm going to say is the headshot. I mean, come on, people. By the end of 2020, please have a picture. I don't connect with anybody that doesn't have a picture. I mean, who doesn't have a picture on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Totally agree. And it has to be a professional one, not this selfie that I took. I totally agree with that.
Yes. I mean,
we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement that my headshot's horrible. Mark has told me I'm changing my shot. Everybody,
like 3 experts in this, Mike, have now told you.
It's 5 now with the other 2 that are on this panel. It's and including my wife and children have said when your 17-year-old children tell you that your social headshot is bad, life is bad. So kudos to you on the headshot thing. I'm changing my headshot.
Good. And I would agree with Mark to a certain extent about, the writing. In my opinion, I don't think that you have to start writing blogs necessarily, but like Mark said, like you really just need to start engaging.
Yes.
Right? How are we networking anyways? I mean, are we just waiting to go to conferences to network with people? We don't need to do that anymore. It's all at our fingertips. We can, talk about things on LinkedIn. When you share a post, write your comments. If you agree with me, great. If you don't, that's fine too. There's an art to it. Obviously, you don't want to slander people on LinkedIn, but put your thoughts to it. If you're going to share something and you're going to take the time to actually do that, put something to it, write something against it, comment on posts that are relevant to you and that you have something to say about. I do a question of the week every single Wednesday, and the conversations that come out of this, like there's replies back and forth. Somebody will comment and then there's replies, and it starts this whole conversation about all sorts of different topics, and it brings people together that wouldn't necessarily be able to come together on their own, right? And there's so much happening like that in this space.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm just going to put one caveat on the Mark thing. I think you can start by, rather than creating your own content, I think giving your opinions on existing topics, or you can even start there if you need to start there. But again,
the thing that people don't understand, Mike, is it comes down to engagement.
Yeah.
Like the more that you engage online, the algorithm is gonna look at you more favorably. You're gonna start getting more people visiting your profile. People are gonna start looking at more of your stuff. That's just how it works.
And recruiting and hiring managers are gonna see you, right?
Well, it's not only that, but it's also how you learn. Yeah. Right? I mean, now it's not just about learning from a book. It's about learning from your peers. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not actively engaged on LinkedIn, reading, different articles that people are posting, you can find out so much about people just on LinkedIn, and being a part of that community and, seeing what they're talking about. And you can actually see where you have the synergies with other people in your field that even at a conference you might not be able to get down to. So, it's really, really, really important. And, if you are going to write blogs, the one thing I'm going to say is you have to be consistent. If you're going to do it every single Wednesday, write a blog every single Wednesday. If you're going to do it once a month, do it once a month. And you have to do it for a little while and be consistent with it for it to gain traction. But it depends where your interests lie too, right? I mean, that's not for everybody. I like audio. Or video. So I post a lot more audio and video than I do blogs. So it's really just about finding what you're comfortable with and what you want to do, and just get out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's
something, I'm sorry, hold on.
One more thing, Mike.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Somebody just raised their hand inside of the Zoom meeting. I'll get to you in a minute. I apologize. I'm just going to finish up through this, and then we're going to get the Q&A in a couple of seconds. So I apologize. Thank you for raising hands. I see the questions. I'm going to get to them in a minute. Go ahead, Mark. And then I want to get Eloise to give her feedback on personal growth for 2020 and what people need to be doing in her opinion. Go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say is the one piece of wisdom I heard about this recently, and I know he's a very polarizing figure, is Gary Vaynerchuk said, attention is currency. And I want people to think about that for a second. So the more attention you have, the more wealth that you've basically created for yourself that you can now buy things with. And with that attention, you can get more things, so to speak, more interviews, more discussions, more focus. All of those things can only happen if the attention is on you. And that only happens when you start to engage.
Interesting. Dr. Eloise, you've been patient.
No, that's a good. I agree with everything that's been said. I was going to talk about networking, like Sarah talked about. I'm an introvert, so networking is horrible for me. I hate it, but it's also been the key to my success. Yeah. And I go to and I present at a lot of small conferences just for the ability to network with people and talk one-on-one. I find it very successful. And there's also, especially in the big cities, there's all these procurement meetups. Procurement Foundry's had a bunch. RSN has had a bunch. ISM has them. Join one of these organizations and go attend, because everybody who attends those are amazing people, and B, just sharing information. And business is really about who you know and making connections.
Yeah, it's funny. We one of our channels, as you all know, because you're all in the Foundry, is IT technology sourcing as a channel. We have 335 people in that channel inside of Procurement Foundry right now. That's the second largest. That's the second largest conference event in the market today for IT procurement people, other than Gartner Symposium. And it's 365 days a year with 335 peers in 52 countries. You don't have to fly to Dallas or Texas or Florida now. You can jump in and start, talking to people, seeing what they're talking about, networking with other IT procurement people. There's $70 billion worth of buying power in that one channel. That's a perfect place if you're in IT procurement to start networking, talking to people, and putting your opinions out there, right? Yeah. And I think the micro, and I don't want to just plug Procurement Foundry, I think that the micro communities are right on the cusp of blowing up, because I think the socials have gotten so big that I think from an enterprise business perspective, micro communities is going to start crushing it in the next year or two.
Yeah, well,
I see everybody nodding, so I'm going to say that's probably the smartest thing I've said today. Listen, so I've got 4:47. I wanted to talk about really quickly. I'm going to give you each a minute. It's a tough question to answer in a minute. what's one of the most, I want to go to forward thinking here for a second. I've got 3 people who consider themselves to be futurists on the show. I'm going to give them each a minute to talk about the future. What's the most innovative thing happening in your space that you've seen, and why do you think people need to pay attention to it this year? Dr. Eloise, you first, since you're the futurist.
Oh God, this is going to be hard. Probably one of the most innovative things there's going to be like 3 that come out, is this smart planning, this intelligent planning. So much of planning is done in Excel. So we'll talk on the supply chain side. It's done in Excel by people in an era where machines and intelligent machines can do it much better, because planning is about pattern recognition. And so, and if you get the planning right, guess what? Your source, make, and deliver towers start to get, you start to remove the slack, and it gets to be much more efficient operations. So you get into doing these smart planning tools. I also think that this idea of automated sourcing, that's probably pretty cool, and I believe those vendors are part of, or will be sort of tangentially connected to Procurement Foundry. But I've seen a number of companies that do automated sourcing, and the beauty of sourcing is that it creates instantaneous value. So the fact that in companies, especially in indirect, should be putting 95% of their spend through sourcing processes, and the fact that companies don't hit that number, and they don't hit it by a mile, it's bad. It's just a miss. How about I say that? It's a miss. And so the fact that you have automated tools that can come in and just clean that up is, increases your yield, your volume, and your coverage. So I would just say that those are the 2 hottest things. And then I'll just make one other plug, and I don't follow directions, Mike. You should know that by now.
Okay, go ahead.
But as a result, I think of what we'll see is now new ways of sourcing. I think, and this is something I'm talking about here in 2020, is our traditional 7-step process, A.T. Kearney's 7-step, everybody's traditional sourcing process. I think we're going to start seeing that turn on its head and change. And that's the one thing that's not technology that I see that has to change here in 2020, because all of our playbooks, I think, are outdated. So I'll just leave it there.
Wow, that might be the quote of the show. The 7-step process is about to change. Mark Raffin, back that up. What do you got? What is the?
How do you follow that?
What is the most?
I'm glad it's you, not me.
I don't know how you follow that.
So, I mean, from a negotiation perspective,
yes.
There's no innovation in procurement happening right now, and it sucks. All of the innovation is happening on the sales side. And if you look on the sales side and you look at companies like Gong or companies like Tether, where they're integrating AI into their telephone calls so that they can determine what the correct response should be based on the question that you're getting from
and your
the
tone
buyer
of voice and all of that, right?
Yeah, analysis of voice. And then like companies like Gong, for example, will analyze an entire sales call, determine what works best, and then the scripts for the salespeople all change as a result. Or if you look at companies like Tether, which is the chief product officer of Tether is a guy named Matt Dixon. Matt Dixon co-wrote the book, The Challenger Sale, with Brent Adamson from Gartner.
Yeah.
So they do a technology that's one step ahead of that, where it's real-time analysis of conversation, and the AI will respond to you with the right thing to say at the right time. I'm sure I've botched that explanation, but it's the most wild thing ever, and it's all based on customer service is what they're focusing on now, and sales. But there's nothing like that happening in procurement. So I think the opportunity for those companies to move across is huge.
Awesome. So Mark's dropping names on companies for all of you that are watching. We'll put those in some of the comments at the end of the show when we post this thing out. Really interesting technology. I'm super excited being a nonverbal communication guy and things like that. So I love getting all geeked out on that stuff. Sarah, what do you see as the most innovative thing in supply chain management for 2020?
Yeah, and I want to apologize because my light is going kind of too. I need to go and open up a window or something. So, I mean, from an innovative standpoint, I'd like to really maybe talk about circular supply chain. I think that is really going to be a huge focus from a supply chain management perspective. And I come back to the collaboration piece, because it's not just going to be the supply chain management folks, it's going to be everybody. And it's going to be looking at the business holistically and figuring out how to, take your supply chain, and rather it be end to end and very fractured, bringing it into a circular model, thinking about sustainability. And I think it's really going to change the game. I mean, it's not a technology per se, but I think it's innovative strategies that are just going to benefit not only the industry, but everybody as a whole, because supply chain from end to end touches everybody, right? The end consumer, and they're getting a lot smarter, and they're, looking to buy from companies that are thinking about these things. And I think that if we are looking at circular supply chains, then, there's a lot of savings there, not only environmentally, but I think from a business perspective as well. And I think also talent, the talent shortage, I think more people are going to start thinking outside the box and outside of the industry. And I think we're going to be bringing more people in, and we're going to be able to benefit from that, because they're going to come in with some amazing innovative ideas, not only from people from outside the industry, but even from the next generation. I mean, I've had a couple of conversations with people, the next generation is looking at warehousing as, design.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like different perspectives and how we're thinking about things. And I think it's just going to change the game exponentially.
Wow. We got a couple of minutes left. I want to get to a couple of questions. I can't thank you all enough for your input so far today. Let me jump into a couple of questions. So we've got Papil from, it doesn't say where he's from, but Papil's watching. He says, I've been in procurement and supply chain over a couple of decades. How do we interface the experts in SQL, VLOOKUPs, which Dave Shepard, someone just rolled over, SQL, VLOOKUPs, Java, et cetera, supply chain, subject matter experts and data scientists. How do we interface them into supply chain management, procurement, instead of companies like Google, medical device, Salesforce, manufacturing, that think these positions exist all in one human being? And I think we already talked about the answer to that question, right? Which is, rather than attempting to go out and find somebody who has 47 pages of expertise, which no one has, in these ridiculous job descriptions that we're all seeing out there in the marketplace, I think there's opportunities and resources that already exist inside of your enterprise, and I think you just have to go find them. Do we all agree on that? We touched on that earlier.
I think often what's missing is procurement doesn't know how to ask. And I don't mean that pejoratively, but the resources are there. Like one of my big things I'm a proponent of is procurement data lakes. And whenever I talk about this, to IT, they're like, yeah, we got that. We just need to know what procurement wants. And, if you can articulate it, then they'll build it. And you're all of a sudden moving into the 21st century. So it's just about specifying it.
Yeah. Yeah. So someone asks, I'm sorry, Paula says, there's so much content right now that's out there. How do we start to filter it down, and where do you suggest how do you suggest we do that? As content creators, how do we recommend to everyone how to consume content in a more logical way?
Well, there's really only 4 things you need to be focused on.
Sorry.
You knew that was going to happen.
I thought both of you Canadians would wait for the other Canadian.
But now I'm waiting, and we're going to get into a Canadian standoff.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Ladies first. Let's Sarah go. Lumberjack needs to hold off. All right, go ahead, Sarah.
All right, so I get this question a lot. I think a lot of people feel this way. And for that specific reason, I actually had the world record's fastest reader on my show back in December. And he actually, he teaches speed reading and speed learning. And for that reason only, because I wanted to be able to give an opportunity to people to be able to consume more without the stress. And so I can't remember what episode it is. I'm going to have to look it up. But it was an amazing episode. And, I think that if we can adopt some of these tools, I think that we'll be able to absorb more information. But they're right. It's coming at us very quickly. There's a lot of great content out there. And I think you really just need to pick and choose at the time what you want to be learning about and who you want to be learning from, and go from there.
All right, I'm going to go to Dr. Eloise because I know Mark. I know. Hold off, because I know he's just going to jump to the screen. Dr. Eloise, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
The one thing that I do is I dedicate time each day to it, and it can be
absolutely fantastic.
And I've had to do that because, and you just pick a couple of things, and you don't try to do it all every day, but just a little bit every day.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference in the world. And you have to turn the email off, stop responding to messages, and just actually, absorb the content. And even if you only do it 20 minutes a day, you'd be surprised how much you can consume.
Yeah. And I think you have to limit it, because you can get down those rabbit holes where you're clicking and clicking and clicking, and all of a sudden you're looking at a cat video, right? So you got to be real careful about that. Mark, go ahead. I know you're dying. Go ahead, brother. What do you got on this?
Well, there's really only 4 things that you need to follow. I mean, they're on the screen right now.
Yeah, there you go. So listen. So all the Procurement Foundry folks that are out there, we're investigating a content clipping bot that will clip all of the day's activity inside of the Procurement Foundry and put it into a single channel for you for your headlines for the day based on keywords for you. I've got a really crazy smart bot developer. He's working on that right now, coming shortly to a theater near you. So just inside of Procurement Foundry, we'll be able to take the 35,000 posts that we've already had and start to collaborate that. And as we grow, it gets bigger and bigger every day. So just so you know, we're working on that.
Just for a second, because going back to the engaging comment from before when we were talking about, personal branding on LinkedIn, I learned so much just from engaging and not necessarily just reading articles.
Yeah.
So, just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, here's another question really quickly. Organizations have skill gaps in data analyst scientists. We all need to grow our skills and take responsibility. Nope, that's just actually a comment. So you're absolutely right. We all do need to grow our skills in data content. I'm going to go back up because I saw some other questions.
We're out of time.
And we're out of time. All right. Thank you, Mark. Mark's responsible for keeping the stopwatch on all of us. So listen, here's what I'm going to recommend. We're all in Procurement Foundry. Feel free to put questions that you have regarding this into the water cooler. We all monitor the water cooler and love it. So if you have questions, we're happy to answer them.
And tag people.
Yes. Tag people when you post things in. That's the number one complaint from our steering committee member from Slack, is that unless you put it in there, it's just noise until you tag somebody and you actually know, so that they know that you're asking them a question. All right. So again, thank you very much for all your time. Sarah, thank you so much. I know how sick you were and that you're just a trooper for laboring through this. Mark, love the flannel, buddy. You got to keep that for the next show. Dr. Eloise, the stuff that you bring I learn every time I talk to you. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Everybody have a great night. Really appreciate the time. And we got to do this again. I got about 7 other topics that we can talk about. And I'm really excited about it. Maybe we can start doing this on the regular. That's really exciting. All right.
You did a great job, buddy. Well done.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Talk to you later. We're out of time. Mark's signing us off. So we're going to commercial. Bye-bye.